Have you ever missed a bus, been late for an appointment, or had that setback that seemed like the end of the world? But days later you realized it saved you from something much worse. Have you ever wondered if that delay, irritating, unexpected, and even humiliating, could actually have been divine protection? Well, what you're about to discover could change the way you view every obstacle in your path. Imagine the scene. A young woman is getting ready to catch the bus to work. She is late, nervous, everything seems to go wrong. Her key falls on the floor, the elevator is late, and when she finally gets to the stop, the bus leaves before her eyes. She sits on the bench, frustrated, crying, thinking about how being late could ruin her entire day. But a few hours later, the news starts coming in. The bus she missed was involved in a serious accident. Lives have been lost, and she was saved. Because everything went wrong. Coincidence? Bad luck that turned into good luck? Or was it something bigger? A sign, an invisible intervention from an angel who protected her without her realizing it? Situations like these seem small, but they carry a profound message. Not every delay is a punishment. Sometimes it is deliverance. Sometimes it is heaven pulling you by the hand, even when all you see is chaos around you. Stay with me until the end, because today we are going to dive into this subtle and fascinating universe of divine interventions. Those that happen behind the scenes of life, without fanfare, without flashing lights, but with a purpose so deep that we can only understand it after it all passes. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever had the feeling that something stopped you from leaving, from moving forward, from arriving, and that maybe, just maybe, that saved you? And what's more, how many times have you insisted on going anyway, ignoring the delay, the signs, the tightness in your chest, and ended up reaping the consequences? It's about these moments that we're going to talk about the fine line between chance and destiny, about how guardian angels they can act between the lines, orchestrating silent twists and turns just to protect you. Many people live these situations and never realize it. Others know that something bigger was present, but cannot explain it. And that's why this video exists, to give voice to what the heart already intuits but the mind often ignores. Because angels don't always appear with wings. Sometimes they manifest as an annoying delay, a closing door, a blocked path, and yet they are saving your life. Get ready to recognize the signs that you may have ignored until now, because from now on, every delay will have a new meaning, and what comes next may reveal much more than you might think. Because from now on, every delay will have a new meaning, and if you feel like you've experienced something similar, that feeling that you were spared from something bad, even without understanding how or why, I want to invite you to share it here in the comments. Yes, really do comment. It's not just an exchange of words, it's an exchange of energy. Sometimes your story can touch someone who is going through exactly this kind of moment right now, thinking that their life is stuck, when in fact it's being carefully redirected. If this topic resonates with you, if it has somehow touched your heart so far, don't forget to leave a like. It may seem like a small thing, but each like shows YouTube that this content has value, and thus more people can be reached with this message, people who may need to hear exactly this today. And if you like exploring these invisible signs of spirituality, if you want to understand more about how angels act in everyday life, in the subtext of life, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Because the truth is that this space only exists because of you, and it is your presence here that keeps this connection alive. With each new video, we go deeper into this journey of awareness and spiritual protection. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. It's not just about viewing, it's about mission, about spreading light in a world that is often too dark. And now stay with me, because what comes next will show you how angels can interfere in our path in such a subtle way that most people don't even notice, until the deliverance has already happened. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we start to observe the details of our own history, we realize that certain things don't make sense, and at the same time, they make perfect sense. Delays that seemed like bad luck turn into fundamental chapters of protection. Last-minute changes that left you angry or lost later turn out to be sacred detours that freed you from something you never imagined was behind that path. That's where the real mystery begins. And this mystery is not superstition, it is not coincidence thrown at random. It is synchronicity, a silent synchronicity that seems to be guided by invisible hands. And perhaps it is. Life has a language that is not expressed in words but in signs. Small events that, when ignored, seem normal but when noticed, reveal something much bigger happening behind the scenes of reality. Have you ever noticed that when something needs to happen, or stop happening, the universe moves in a very peculiar way? Sometimes, everything works together to close a door no matter how much we insist on keeping it open. Other times there is a subtle push that takes us away from a place, a situation, an encounter that seemed right, but wasn't. The delay that prevents you from arriving on time, the connection that keeps you at home for 5 more minutes, the tire that goes flat that very day. And no matter how much the mind tries to rationalize, the heart always feels there is something more here. This is where the notion of divine intervention comes in, an action that is not there to impress, but to protect, that doesn't scream, but whispers, and he acts without asking permission, because he knows that, if it depended only on our will, we wouldn't even realize the danger we were about to face. This type of protection is often invisible to the eye, but leaves traces for those who have the sensitivity of soul to see. Spirituality teaches us that we are not alone, that there is a greater plan being drawn up, even when everything seems confusing. And the more we slow down and pay attention, the clearer the presence of these subtle movements becomes. A delay is never just a delay when we look at it from this angle. It can be the exact point where the divine plan touches your daily life. And when you start to realize this, something changes inside you. Your mindset changes, your way of reacting to the unexpected changes. You stop fighting against time and start trusting in the right timing of things. Many people think they are protected only when they see spectacular miracles. But true miracles are often silent. They happen when you can't see the deliverance, but you feel like you escaped something. When a series of mishaps prevented you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time, when everything seems to be going wrong, and yet you feel a strange peace, as if some part of you knew it had to be this way. It is in this subtle feeling that angels act. They don't need to manifest themselves with light and sound. All it takes is an impulse, a detail, a delay. How many times in our rush do we ignore these little warnings? How many times have you felt pushed in the opposite direction of your will, only to realize later that the true path was there? This sensitivity is not a gift reserved for a few. It comes from paying attention, from being present enough to notice when reality is trying to speak to you. And more than that, it comes from the courage to trust. Because trusting the invisible requires more strength than controlling the predictable. And perhaps this is the most important point, trusting that delay is not punishment, but deliverance. That the pause is not loss, but protection. That behind the setback there is a greater spiritual loving intelligence that knows what you do not yet know, that sees beyond the now. And that acts even when you do not understand, even when you complain, even when everything inside you wants to speed up. This change in perspective transforms the way you deal with life's cycles. You begin to accept, not as someone who conforms, but as someone who understands. And this understanding opens internal doors that were previously closed by anxiety, fear, and the need for control. Because when we understand that there is something, or someone, protecting us even when we don't ask for it, a type of gratitude is born that changes everything. Comment here. That makes sense to me. If at any point in your life you have felt that the universe held you for a greater reason. Even if you only understood this much later. Now there's something even deeper that I want to show you, because when we begin to recognize that nothing happens by chance, that there is a silent intelligence operating behind the scenes of our existence, life takes on a new texture. And that is when the role of angels begins to reveal itself, not as characters from old stories, but as real, attentive presences that manifest themselves in ways that are much more subtle than we imagine. They do not arrive announcing their arrival. They insinuate themselves through coincidences, And it is in these subtexts that true magic lies. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times your path has been discreetly diverted by a force you couldn't name? Like when an inexplicable feeling makes you change your mind at the last minute, or that thought that appears out of nowhere, making you take a different path, avoid a meeting, change a plan. In common logic, we would call this intuition. But what if, behind this intuition, there was an invisible touch? A whisper coming from a spiritual presence that acts silently, making small adjustments to keep you away from danger. Several spiritual traditions, from the oldest to the most contemporary, talk about this. About how angels do not need to materialize before us to fulfill their mission. They change routes, they touch our thoughts, they manipulate the small gears of reality as if they were moving the invisible threads of destiny. And they do it with such delicacy that it all seems like a simple coincidence. But the hidden truth behind these coincidences is that most of the time they are divine interventions in disguise. A forgotten message that made you go back home. An object that fell on the floor and made you 5 minutes late. A sudden memory that made you turn around. Situations so banal that the mind ignores them, but that may have prevented something. Serious, something that you will never know, precisely because you were spared. This is one of the greatest proofs that angelic action is not always spectacular. It is strategic, and that is precisely why so many people go through life without realizing how much they have already been saved. Without realizing that that coincidence, that luck or that setback was in fact an action coordinated by something much greater. Angels operate with precision. They are in charge of the small decisions that, without us realizing, completely change the course of our journey. They know what is still hidden from our eyes. They have access to information that our rational mind cannot reach. And it is based on this that they adjust times, meetings, delays, and deviations, not to punish or confuse you, but to realign you with your purpose. Because sometimes what we desire most is exactly what would distance us from our essence. And the angels know this. That is why they intercede. And the most fascinating thing is that this care extends to the little things. It doesn't have to be a major tragedy that has been avoided for there to be an intervention. It could be a conversation you didn't have, a street you didn't cross, an invitation you declined without knowing why. These seemingly unimportant moments are like pieces of a cosmic puzzle, and angels are the guardians who organize these pieces at the right time. The impact of this goes far beyond what you can see, because when you recognize this presence, when you realize that there is a force guiding your life so gently, you begin to walk with more confidence. You no longer need to understand everything. You learn to trust the pauses, the detours, the silences. You learn to welcome the unexpected as part of the divine choreography that is being danced by you, even on the most chaotic days. And this awareness not only transforms your spirituality, but also your mindset. You start to make more conscious choices. You learn to listen to your intuition with more respect, and you understand that moving forward does not always mean advancing at any cost. Sometimes moving forward means waiting. It means stopping. It means listening to that inner whisper that says, "Not now." This whisper is often the angel itself, trying to protect you from something that you cannot yet see. The most beautiful thing about all of this is knowing that you are never truly alone. Even on the days when everything seems to be falling apart. Even when being late irritates you, when plans change frustrate you, when nothing goes as expected. In those moments, you may be exactly where you need to be, at the center of the action of an angel who loves you deeply, and who does everything to keep you safe, even if you only realize this much later. So the next time something seemingly meaningless happens, breathe, observe, feel. It could be a message, it could be a loving intervention, it could be life. Whispering, "Wait, don't go on like that. Trust." Over time, you will realize that the more open you are to these little revelations, the clearer they become. And the more present you become in this silent dialogue between the visible and the invisible, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too," if you feel like you've experienced something like this, even if you can't fully explain it. Imagine the following scene. A man arrives at the airport with his ticket in hand, ready to board a flight that would change the course of his life. Everything was going according to plan until a small, almost insignificant, unforeseen event delayed his yaw. Arrival at the check-in counter. 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. And that was enough to prevent him from boarding. Frustrated, he questioned, tried to argue, insisted. But the rules were clear, and the answer was a cold and definitive no. With his luggage still in his hands, and his heart clenched with disappointment, he sat in the waiting room, trying to understand why the delay had cost him so much. Hours later, the news came as a shock. The plane he was supposed to be on had crashed. No survivors. This is not a movie script or an urban legend. It is the true story of Oswaldo Fernandez Costa Jr., a 53-year-old veterinarian who missed flight LA 7783, Voepas 2283, on August 9, 2024. The plane crashed in Vinhedo in the interior of São Paulo, and 62 people lost their lives. Oswaldo escaped by 2 minutes. In an interview with CNN, he revealed, with his voice choked with emotion, "Sometimes we don't understand the things that happen, but I can say that God protected us. This type of event touches something deep within us, because who has never been upset by a delay, a change of plans, or something that seemed to be going wrong? But what if these setbacks are, in fact, divine interventions? What if what we call coincidence is just the name we give to the movements of angels when we still don't understand what is happening behind the scenes in life?" Oswaldo's journey is like a mirror. It reflects something that many of us have felt, even without having gone through something so extreme. A delay that avoided an accident, a connection that kept you at home for 5 more minutes, a hunch that made you change your path. These details that go unnoticed can be the invisible hand of angels guiding us, protecting us, saving us, even if we only realize it much later. And this brings us to a crucial point: our mindset when faced with things we don't understand. Most people see unexpected events as obstacles, as frustrations, as injustices. But what if they are opportunities in disguise? What if, behind every delay, there is a hidden truth, a greater purpose, a subtle message from the spiritual plane? Spirituality teaches us that angels often do not shout, do not appear in flashes of light, do not knock on our door. They act in silence, in time, in synchronicity. They operate where logic cannot reach and reason cannot explain. And when we are able to perceive these signs, when we recognize that perhaps we are being saved, even without knowing it, something changes within us. This transformation is internal, but it impacts the way we see everything around us. We start to see delays as divine pauses, changes in route as protection, and the mistakes of the day as adjustments of fate. We start to trust, to listen more to our intuition, to accept that not everything is under our control, and that this is a blessing. Angels, according to numerous spiritual traditions, act mainly in moments of transition, doubt, and danger. They do not appear to pamper us or make life easier. They appear to preserve what is essential: our mission, our life, our journey. Sometimes they take us away from a place so that we can continue on the right path. Other times, they delay us because what awaited us ahead was not for us, or it was not the right time. It is in these almost invisible details that their presence reveals itself. And Oswaldo's story is just one among many. There are stories of people who didn't get on the train, who missed the train, who forgot something at home and turned back. And because of that, they were saved. Or they avoided something worse. And that's not just luck, it's intervention, it's purpose, it's protection. When you start to look at your own life with this more attentive eye, you may realize that you have already experienced something similar. A moment when something went wrong, and then you understood that in fact that saved you from something much worse. That is when the penny drops, and you realize that the angels are present even when everything seems confusing. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because in addition to the delays that save, there are also impulses that come out of nowhere and make us act differently. And that's when a lot starts to reveal itself. Comment below: I'm on this journey too, if this topic is stirring something inside you. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding how angels act without us seeing them can completely change the way you interpret the events in your life. Many people believe that angels only appear in dramatic moments, with bright lights or visible signs. But in reality, most of their actions happen silently, behind the scenes of our existence, in subtle and almost imperceptible ways. They don't need to interfere in a scandalous way to make big changes. A thought that appears out of nowhere, fair feeling of discomfort before making a decision, an unexplained delay. All of these can be their way of intervening, respecting your free will, but gently guiding you away from danger or towards what really matters. It is important to understand that angels do not act as manipulators of our reality. They are not here to control our every step. On the contrary, they deeply respect our choices, our freedom to decide. But there are times when, for greater reasons, for protection or a mission, they move. When something in your journey needs to be preserved, when there is an imminent risk or when there is a higher calling involved, angels stand between you and what could take you away from your purpose. And they do this without noise, without fanfare. They simply change the course of things, like someone blowing on a sheet of paper that was about to fall into a puddle and it changes direction. Have you ever noticed how sometimes something that seemed to go wrong actually paved the way for something much bigger? This isn't just coincidence. It's as if a higher intelligence is orchestrating events, adjusting small details so that everything happens at the right time. Maybe a door closed because you weren't ready yet. Or maybe there was a more aligned connection waiting for you up ahead. And when the angels realize that you're not listening to the whispers, the intuitions, the inner warnings, they create scenarios that force you to stop, to wait, to look in another direction. These interventions do not nullify our responsibility. On the contrary, they invite us to be more attentive to the signs, to develop a more sensitive listening style, to cultivate an open mind to perceive the invisible. Many times the angels will not prevent you from making a wrong decision, but they will place a doubt in your heart, an unexpected conversation on your path, or even a feeling of discomfort that makes you rethink the next steps. And the most fascinating thing is that these actions often happen in moments that, on the surface, seem ordinary. A change of route, a random encounter, a mechanical problem in the car, a number that you see repeatedly. They speak to you throughout life, and if you are too distracted, you may not notice them. But if you are awake, with the eyes of your soul open, you can recognize these small miracles of everyday life as clear messages that you are not alone. The hidden truth is that angels act with extreme wisdom. They know the weight of each choice, the impact of each movement, and that is why they do not interfere for no reason. When they decide to intervene, it is because there is a deeper reason, something that goes beyond what the mind can understand. At that moment, that is why when something goes wrong, perhaps what is happening is just the universe conspiring, with their help, to align you with what really matters. Because there are times when delay is deliverance, loss is protection, and silence is direction. And this kind of perception transforms our journey. We begin to walk more lightly, with more confidence, because we understand that not everything depends solely on logic or effort. There is an invisible web of care and purpose that surrounds us, not to stop us from growing, but to ensure that our journey is lived with meaning. May our choices lead us to the center of our mission and not to the shortcuts of ego or fear. So, when you feel that something is stuck, that your plans haven't turned out as expected, instead of getting frustrated, right away take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I not seeing here? Maybe this pause, this detour, this unexpected wait is the angel's delicate way of telling you, not here, but we are with you. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. If you've ever felt, at some point in your life, that something invisible protected you, even when everything seemed to be spiraling out of control. If it makes sense to you, take a look at the material I left below, called Reading Your Birth Angel. It is practical and straightforward content, prepared especially for those who are interested in everything we have discussed so far. In it, you can connect with personalized guidance from the angelic kingdom, which helps you navigate the powerful transformations that are happening in your life. This material is complementary to what we have discussed here and can save you a lot of time in practice, bringing clarity and direction to your spiritual journey. It is here in the description, but I may take it down in the next few days, So if it is useful to you, take advantage of it while it is still available. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Do you know those moments when something inside you bothers you, an intuition comes to you, but you simply choose to ignore it? Or those occasions when it seems like the entire universe is conspiring to make you need to change your plans? Unexplained delays, obstacles that appear out of nowhere, a succession of events that test your patience and your ability to adapt. It is in these small situations that we often let powerful signs go unnoticed, subtle messages coming from a plane that goes far beyond the physical world. These signs, which may seem like mere coincidences, are in fact divine alerts, a silent language that speaks directly to your soul and that, if understood, has the potential to transform your entire perception of life. It's amazing how our daily lives are filled with these almost invisible signs, that persistent and uncomfortable feeling that something is out of place, the unexpected phone call that changes the course of events, the meeting that is cancelled at the last minute, the strange dream that keeps repeating itself night after night. It may seem frustrating or even annoying, but what these moments really offer is an invitation for you to stop, take a deep breath and reflect on the decisions you're about to make or the path you are following. They act as silent guardians, alerting us to dangers that we do not yet see, or simply redirecting us towards choices that are more aligned with our life purpose. We live in a society that values absolute control, the urgency of quick responses, resistance to change, and the unshakable certainty of the plan we have drawn up for ourselves. But when we begin to perceive and accept these signs, our mentality undergoes a profound transformation. We understand that delay, setbacks, that insistent intuition that seemed meaningless, are in fact powerful instruments of transformation. They take us out of our comfort zone and lead us to a new perception, where trust in the natural flow of life prevails over our limited and often impatient will. Imagine how many times you have had to postpone a trip, an important project, or even a crucial decision, and only later realized that that postponement was essential to avoid bigger problems, or for something even better to come your way. This understanding completely changes the way we view setbacks. We begin to see them not as obstacles, but as portals that open to deep learning and significant turning points in our journey. A hidden truth is then revealed. What initially seemed like a barrier is in fact a gift in disguise, an intervention that came to protect you and prepare the ground for the next stage of your growth. And don't think that this wisdom is reserved only for life's major events. Often, it is in the details of everyday life that these signs appear most clearly. A transit that makes you lose precious minutes, a chance encounter with someone who seems to have a message for you, that dream that returns with the same insistent symbolism. All of these carry messages that deserve our attention and respect. The impact of these signs goes beyond the present moment, reaching the deepest layers of our spiritual and emotional journey. They connect us with the invisible backstage of our existence, with forces that work silently for our greater good, even when life seems to follow an uncertain and confusing path. Therefore, it is essential to cultivate a special sensitivity, an openness to deciphering these clues that the universe places before us. Developing an intimate and trusting relationship with our intuition and with the wisdom of the cosmos is the path to leaving behind a rigid and controlling mentality and embracing a more fluid and conscious way of living. This process requires courage, because it is not always easy to look within, question old beliefs and accept that transformation, the kind that is truly worthwhile, happens when we let go of the reins of control and learn to trust in the mystery of the unknown. When this true connection happens, life begins to flow in a surprising way, with more ease and naturalness. Decisions are no longer the result of fear or haste and begin to reflect who we really are and what we came here to do. We begin to understand delays and changes, of course, not as failures, punishments, or bad luck, but as manifestations of a higher intelligence that is attentive to every detail of our path, that takes care of us with delicacy and wisdom, even when we do not realize it. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Comment below. This makes sense to me if you've already felt these signs or started to realize that they may be speaking directly to you. How many times in the long journey of life have You found yourself at a fork in the road where your heart whispered one direction, while your mind insisted on following another path. How many times have you persisted in that project, that relationship, that decision, even though you felt an inner restlessness, a subtle call asking you to slow down, reflect, rethink? This insistence, often fueled by anxiety and the desire to control every detail, can become one of the biggest obstacles on your journey of self-transformation. Learning to recognize the power of not now or wait a little is an act of humility, and at the same time a profound demonstration of wisdom, something that few truly manage to embody. Life, with its labyrinths and mysteries, constantly confronts us with choices that at first glance seem simple, but which carry the immense weight of influencing our destiny. Often, when faced with unexpected obstacles or delays that seem to arise out of nowhere, we are tempted to ignore the signs, to run over our intuition in the name of haste. These inner voices, these beacons that illuminate the backstage of our existence, are there to protect us, to remind us that that path may not be the right time, that there is a deeper truth veiled by time that needs to be revealed before we can move forward. Closing our eyes to these warnings is to miss the chance for essential reflection. It is to refuse the learning that can completely transform our vision and our journey. It is understandable to want to have absolute control, to want to be in charge of the choices that shape our history. However, this mental rigidity can lead to intense exhaustion, internal conflicts, and even situations that could be avoided with a little more attention to inner silence. When we begin to trust in the pause, to value the interval between one action and another, we open space for a greater intelligence, that invisible force that governs the universe, to act in our favor in ways that we cannot even imagine. It is, in this interval, in this space of detachment, that true transformation manifests itself. Letting go of the steering wheel of haste, taking a deep breath and embracing the wisdom of not knowing, can be one of the most revolutionary steps in building a new mentality. This attitude is not a sign of weakness or giving up, but rather of a deep connection with the natural flow of life and respect for the rhythm that each stage demands. It is accepting that not everything needs to happen immediately, that the no we receive can actually be a gift that makes room for something much greater to blossom in due time. Trusting in the not now is a gesture of courage that defies the urgency of the modern world, that invites us to abandon anxiety and cultivate patience, a patience that ultimately leads to wiser decisions, more aligned with our essence. Choosing to listen to these signs, you allow a greater force to guide your steps, transforming each decision, no matter how small it may seem, into an opportunity for growth and learning. This choice builds a mindset that values what is beyond appearances, that perceives the hidden truth behind events, and recognizes the profound impact that each small choice has on your trajectory. It is an invitation for you to take on the role of protagonist of your own story, but with the humility necessary to recognize that sometimes the best path is the one that has not yet revealed itself completely, the one that reveals itself when we are open to the revelations that arise from silence, waiting, and surrender. How many times do we insist on following paths that take us away from our essence, that keep us stuck in repetitive cycles and prevent us from seeing beyond the immediate? How many times does resistance to not now make us miss the opportunity to access a dimension of wisdom that only reveals itself when we slow down and allow ourselves to listen? This deep reflection is an invitation to dive inward, a call to question our own decisions and understand that true strength lies in knowing exactly when to insist and when to let go, when to act and when to wait. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Comment below. I'm on this journey too, if you've already experienced the transformative power of pausing and listening to yourself. There are moments in life when something happens or doesn't happen, and the only possible explanation is someone up there was watching over me. These are episodes that don't follow logic, don't obey statistics, but leave a deep, almost sacred mark on our memory. And it is precisely at this point that we enter a territory where reason is silent and intuition speaks louder, where the invisible manifests itself with such force that even the most skeptical stop to reflect. It is as if, at certain moments, a silent and loving presence were there, intervening without fanfare, but with precision. And this perception, however subtle, transforms everything. It changes the way we look at details, the decisions we make, the synchronicities that previously went unnoticed. Because when someone feels with an open heart that they have been spared from something, that they have been guided or protected, that feeling is never forgotten. I will tell you a few stories that express this very clearly. The first one was about a woman who was about to turn onto a highway at night during a storm. She had already put the keys in the ignition, but something inside her, a sudden, almost physical discomfort, made her stop for a moment. It was no ordinary fear. It was a tightness in her chest, as if someone were holding her arm and saying, "Not now." She decided to wait. Half an hour later, she learned that a serious accident had occurred exactly on the stretch of road she was going to drive at that time. She has never ignored her intuition since then. She said that for the first time she understood what it meant to be cared for by something that you cannot see, but can feel. Another touching story comes from a young man who, for no apparent reason, decided to get off the bus one stop early. He was distracted with his headphones on, and only realized he had gotten off at the wrong place when he realized he would have to walk further. At that very moment, he received a distressed call from his sister, saying that a robbery had just taken place on the bus where he was supposed to be. This type of situation is not just a coincidence. When it happens again with such precision, the emotional and spiritual impact is inevitable. He said that he never again doubted the presence of a greater force guiding him, even when everything seemed too ordinary. And perhaps one of the most powerful stories is that of a woman who was going through a difficult period, with a lot of anxiety and doubts about her own life. One morning, she woke up with an intense feeling of heat in her chest, but it wasn't a physical discomfort. It was something that mixed peace and emotion. When she opened her eyes, she saw a subtle light in the corner of the room, as if someone was there, and she felt a presence that made her cry but without pain. The next day she discovered that a close friend had prayed intensely for her at that very same time, unaware of what she was going through. This connection, which crosses space and time, is one of the greatest proofs that we are not alone. These stories, as simple as they may seem, carry immense power, because they are not just about luck or chance. They are about faith, about connection, about listening to something that goes beyond the rational mind. They are experiences that reveal the backstage of the invisible, where angels, or whatever name you prefer to give them, are constantly vigilant, trying to smooth our path, prevent unnecessary falls, shorten suffering. And the key is how we open ourselves to perceive all of this. When we begin to value these small but great interventions, our mindset changes. We begin to see the journey with different eyes, with more sensitivity and gratitude. We realize that even the setbacks have a purpose, and that often the pain we avoid is not even felt because something or someone protected us beforehand. The awareness of this presence transforms the way we face challenges. We no longer feel like we are fighting alone. And even when everything seems silent, this silence carries a strength that takes care of us behind the scenes of our existence. This connection, so intimate and so broad at the same time, demands surrender. Because trusting in something that cannot be seen but that can be felt is one of the greatest acts of faith. It is understanding that every small delay, every sudden change, every strange sensation can be a warning, a care, an interference, full of love. And when we look back and realize how many times we were diverted from something that could hurt us, the feeling that remains is one of deep reverence. There is indeed something greater guiding us, and the more we listen, the more this protection intensifies. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Write down, "This makes sense to me," if any of these stories awakened something in you or reminded you of a special moment in your journey. It's strange how time seems to play with us. When we're in a good phase, the days fly by, the hours disappear, and everything flows like a dance. But when we're waiting for something, an answer, a change, a cure, a sign, time seems to slow down, almost as if mocking our anxiety. It's in these moments that the difference between our time and God's time reveals itself most powerfully. While we count the minutes, the heavens count the purposes. And this difference, as uncomfortable as it may seem, is what sustains some of the greatest transformations in our lives. The human mind has been trained to desire quick results. We grew up with the idea that everything needs to be immediate, as if speed were a sign of success. But the universe does not work at that frequency. There is a right time for everything to happen, and that time, however invisible it may be, follows a sacred order. When something is delayed, it does not mean that it has been denied. It may just be a silent redirection, a preparation behind the scenes for something greater that we cannot yet see. What seems like a delay to us is, for the divine plan, polishing. A wait that shapes, teaches, and strengthens. There are people who, in the midst of the pain of waiting, wonder if they have been forgotten. But this feeling, however legitimate it may be, usually arises from the wounded ego, not from the soul. The soul knows how to wait. It understands that divine timing carries a wisdom that our understanding does not yet grasp. Sometimes, the pause that most irritates is precisely the pause that heals the most. It takes you out of the illusion of control and puts you in the flow of trust. It is as if God were saying, without words, "Calm down. It is not ready yet, and neither are you." This difference in time also reveals something precious to us. Human time is occupied with doing. Divine time is focused on being. While you are running after answers, life is silently preparing you to become the person who will know what to do with them when they finally arrive. It is an invisible construction, but it has a profound impact. Therefore, when the path seems to be at a standstill, it does not mean that you are stagnant. It may be that deep down everything is organizing itself in your favor, exactly as it needs to be. Of course, this requires a change of mindset. Trusting in God's timing means letting go of the rush. It means stopping measuring your life by other people's yardsticks and starting to realize that your internal clock can be exactly where it needs to be. Sometimes, the most powerful lesson comes from silence. It's in that space between what you want and what hasn't happened yet that revelation resides. When you look back after a while, you realize that every delay had a reason, every detour prevented harm, every wait brought you strength you never imagined you had. It's curious. How many of our greatest requests come with an invisible package of waiting, as if the desire itself already brought with it the need for maturation? Just because something is good doesn't mean it's ready to happen. Sometimes the universe is just testing your surrender, silently asking, "Do you really trust? Are you willing to walk without seeing the next step?" And when you respond with patience and presence, something inside you aligns with the truth. That's when you begin to realize that God's timing is not against you. He is for you. Some people report that the best moments in their lives came after long periods of silence. A woman who had been waiting years to get pregnant, only to give up control and give up everything when she received the news she had been waiting for. A man who was fired and spent months aimless until he finally found his true calling, something he would never have dared to choose if things had gone his way before. Stories like these show us that divine timing is not about delay, but about alignment. It is not about forcing things to work out, but about letting life reveal at the right time what is already rightfully yours. This waiting, as distressing as it may seem, is full of spiritual wisdom. It teaches us to trust, to observe, to notice the small miracles that happen while nothing happens. It teaches us to respect the rhythm of the soul, which is much wiser than the urgency of the mind. Waiting also cleanses. It separates what is genuine desire from what is just disguised vanity. It shows where your real focus is. It shows how much you are willing to transform yourself, and not just to achieve a result. Ultimately, God's timing is a constant invitation to surrender, to recognize that we are not the authors of everything, but co-authors of a greater story. And that in this story, even silence has a function, even pauses have a purpose, even absence at times is teaching you something essential. It's as if life is saying, "You don't understand yet, but you'll be grateful for it later." And the most interesting thing is that when the right moment finally arrives, everything makes sense. The pieces fit together with a perfection that you could never have planned on your own. And then you understand why that path had to wait, why that person only came in later, why that door remained closed for so long. It is at that moment that peace takes the place of doubt, because you experience in practice the certainty that divine timing never fails. It only acts when everything, including you, is ready. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Write in the comments, "I'm learning to trust in the right time," if you feel that this message touched some part of your journey. It's funny how, looking back, some of the situations that frustrated us the most ended up being the very ones that saved us. That no that hurt so much, that opportunity that slipped through our fingers, that answer that never came. At the time all of this happened, the feeling was of rejection, failure, disappointment. We wonder what we did wrong, why it didn't work out, why the universe seemed to be silent. But time, with its unique way of revealing hidden truths, shows us that many of these delays were in fact protections. As if life had said, "Not yet, and you'll thank me for it later." And how often does this actually happen? Years later, you realize that the relationship that ended saved you from a painful journey, or that the job you lost paved the way for a project that is much more aligned with your essence. What seemed like a loss was, in fact, a realignment. What seemed like an end was just a curve in the road, taking you to a place you never imagined existed. And this is no coincidence, this is purpose. It is the dance of the invisible, working behind the scenes of your journey with surgical precision. The mindset of those who begin to understand this changes completely. They stop being someone who only regrets what didn't happen and start to see meaning even in the voids, because they realize that God's timing never fails, even when the human mind doesn't understand. And this brings peace, a peace that is not conformity, but wisdom, a peace that comes from trust, from surrender, from the certainty that each second of waiting can have a profound impact, even if you don't see it yet. There is a silent transformation that takes place in the soul of those who learn to trust in this greater time, a kind of spiritual maturity that is not measured by age but by depth. The person begins to act with more serenity, to make more conscious decisions, to listen better to their own intuition. You begin to understand that not all that glitters is gold, and that not every closed door is injustice. Sometimes it's just a sacred detour, a preparation, a miracle disguised as a delay, and in this process something magical happens. You start to be thankful for things that used to frustrate you. Sorrow turns into gratitude, despair into trust, and what once seemed meaningless starts to fit together with a perfection that only those who have experienced waiting can understand. It's like putting together a puzzle blindly and suddenly discovering that the pieces were connecting all along. You just couldn't see them yet. This changes everything. It changes the way you look at your own steps. It changes the way you react to life's no's. And most importantly, it changes the way you walk, even without having all the answers. It is in this space that true strength emerges. Not the noisy kind that needs to prove something to the world, but a quiet, rooted strength that trusts in the invisible, that knows that there is something greater guiding its steps. And this is liberating, because it takes the weight off of control, it relieves anxiety, and it gives space for silent miracles to happen at the right time, in the right way, with the impact that only the universe knows how to calculate. Life often teaches us through contrast. It shows us what was not meant to be, so that we can value what really is. It removes from our path what was holding us back, even if we didn't see it yet. And it places us in front of the mirror, with courage, to remind us of what we came here to do. So the next time something is delayed, breathe. The next time a door doesn't open, observe. The next time the silence seems unfair, listen. Because it may be that, deep down, that delay is exactly what will lead you to find your essence. And when you understand this, you begin to walk more lightly. Not because everything is resolved, but because your soul has already understood that it is being taken care of. That time is not punishing you, it is protecting you. That the deviations, the silences, and even the new beginnings have a purpose. And this understanding changes everything. It transforms your outlook. It aligns your decisions. It awakens your presence. And it invites you to live with more authenticity, with more sensitivity, and with more faith. So, given this perspective, I leave you with a simple but powerful question. Was that delay you so lamented actually a silent miracle? Comment below. Have you ever experienced a deliverance like this? A delay that later made perfect sense? If you've made it this far, it's because this message touched you in some way, and I'm glad we were able to walk through this reflection together. I truly believe that when we find content that resonates with what we're experiencing, it doesn't happen by chance. It's just one of those subtle signs that life sends. So, if this video made sense to you, if it brought you clarity, comfort, or even relief, subscribe to the channel. It'll be great to have you around for the upcoming conversations we'll have. And tell me here in the comments, just so I know that you came with me until the end. Write, "I'm with you until the end." I love reading it and feeling this connection that we created here. Oh, and leave your like too, not as an automatic gesture, but as a way of saying, this exchange was worth it. There is a video here on the side that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there. We still have a lot to discover together.